Hello, everybody. Thanks to welcome to our Studio Suite webinar. My name is Joel Stoner. I am the founder CEO of Alter Media, and today we're talking about iOS features of Studio Suite. This will be about 45 minutes, and we are recording this. It will be posted to our site eventually. Sometimes it takes a bit because we need to edit them to fix all of my mistakes as I'm doing these. We're doing webinars most Thursdays. You can see the schedule for them on our site. And you can type any questions as they come up. I will try to answer them either in line or at the end. And this isn't intended to be a full demo of all of Studio Suite. We're only really talking about an overview or tutorial of the iOS features that we've got. So let's get started. To use the iOS on for Studio Suite, obviously you need to get FileMaker Go version 12 installed, and that's available for free at the App Store. So when you go on your device, just go to the App Store, search for FileMaker Go. Make sure you get version 12 because it is free. If you get version 11, you've got to pay for it, and it won't work. So make sure you get version 12. So FileMaker Go on your iOS is basically an application like FileMaker Pro. It allows you to see the data that's on your server, just as if it were a normal FileMaker Pro client running on your computer. And to do that, you do want to have port 5003 forwarded to your FM server on your router. So that's kind of a techie thing. But if you go into your router settings, go to port forwarding, or sometimes it's under gaming and applications, you have the option to forward port 5003 to the IP address of your FileMaker server. And we are here to help you if sounds like gibberish to you. We can do some of that for you. People have asked us, so I'll mention that this probably won't be available on Android, at least for a while. And that's largely because FileMaker, the company, is owned by Apple. And you may have heard they're in a bit of a battle with Android, so they're not releasing FileMaker Go for Android. But my opinion is I think that's going to change for a while. However, there are some kind of workarounds, and because Studio Suite does sync to Google Calendar, what you could do is view your Google Calendar on your Android device, and because it's two-way sync, you can make some changes on your Android device to your Google Calendar uh, to get some of that functionality. And then we've also got some basic web functionality for read-only calendar, read-only contacts, read-only tasks, and read-only library, which you can of course see on your Android device. Let's talk a little bit about seat licensing, and then this is specifically for the iOS when using FileMaker Go, because it does essentially allow you to have full access to your Studio Suite data. You can create it and edit data. It does occupy a seat license, meaning that if you bought 5 seats of Studio Suite and you're using Studio Suite on 5 computers, your iPad or iPhone counts as a sixth, and therefore you're going to have to log off on one of the other ones. So to use it, you'll want to obviously log off your desktop or just get a couple extra seats. Um, Another thing to keep in mind is that there is no data on your iOS device. It's all held on your server, which means that any change that you make on your iOS device shows up on the desktops and vice versa. And so that also means that as long as you've got all your passwords set up to log in to Studio Suite on your iOS device, that all your data is safe. Another thing to keep in mind is that all the iOS screens are just layouts in FileMaker, formatted to the appropriate size and functionality, and for the device. So we in Studio Suite 10 have layouts for iPad and layouts for iPhone. And then some of them we've even got set up so that when you rotate the device to horizontal, you'll see more fields available. And if you go to vertical, you'll see more data that way. So you can twist them around the way you want. The neat things is that makes it so you can edit those layouts to suit your needs. If you need more or less data, you can pull out those fields or hide them as needed. And I also want to say that these iOS devices are really best when they're used, within your network where the server is. If you try to extend this out into 3G, working on this on the bus or at home, um, then it's you're going to have to expect it to be a little bit slower because Ethernet Wi-Fi is faster than 3G or 4G. So with that said, we don't intend the iOS to be replacement for using Studio Suite on a computer. It's just additional secondary access point. If you're walking around the facility and you want to look at something or make a note from your sofa, you can do that. But don't try to book huge projects with it. Don't do budgets, things like that. So with all of that said, let's go out to Studio Suite. Let me hide this. So here is Studio Suite um, on your desktop, and I'm using an application. I'm going to hide this. I'll try to hide it. There we go. I'm using an application called Reflector. It used to be called Reflection. They changed the name to be able to view my iOS devices. I'm holding in front of me an iPhone and an iPad. The first thing I'm going to do is show you how to hook these up. So when you launch FileMaker Go, I'm going to be working on the iPad. This is what you'll see. On the left are the files on the device, and those are just some sample files. That's not actually what we're going to be looking at. On the right side at the top, we see our favorite hosts, which are servers that we've connected to. And then the kind of on the bottom of the right side, you'll see recent files, which are ones that we've connected to in the past on this device. So I've connected to our server, the Uber Mini, and also to my MacBook Pro in the past, so they're listing it there. And I could launch them right now just by clicking on one of those, but that wouldn't do you guys any good. What I want to do is show you how to find your server the first time. So unfortunately, my mouse doesn't work, so I'm going to try to do this both with my touching my iPad and pointing it out at the um, with the mouse at the same time. So you see this little server icon up there with the plus sign. I'm going to go ahead and touch that. And this is going to bring up a place where I can type in the IP address of my server. And this is available on your um, main screen down right here in FileMaker, sorry, in Studio Suite. On the main menu, bottom right is the server IP address, which is 242.143.18 in my case. I'm going to hide that. I'm going to go back to here and type this in kind of painfully on the iPad. 24.205.143.18. And I'm just going to call this Uber. We call our server Uber, or this particular one. It's really the same one. So I'm going to save that, and then that's going to become available right here as an available host. So I'm going to click on that, and that's going to open up and show me all the files that we've got listed on there. And we happen to have a ton of them for a million old versions of Studio Suite. Studio Suite 5, oops, I clicked on one there, I didn't mean to. That was a mistake. Okay, so I'm going to go back there. It's going to show me the files again. Scroll down. Hopefully yours will only have actual Studio Suite 10 files on it. So I'm going to touch SSX main right there, and it's going to allow me to type in my username and password. My password is a single character, and this is a minor tip. Um, Sometimes you put in your passwords numbers, but on the iOS you have to then click the number pad to do that. So I just use a lowercase single letter when I'm doing these demos to make it easy. So I suggest your passwords, make them lowercase. If you make them all text, it's easier to log into from the iPad. So here we go, and it's going to start logging in. We'll see the normal kind of login screen, and we'll get an idea of the speed. I mentioned this earlier. It is just going to be a little bit slower because, well, it just is slower. Okay, so here we are, and it's always weird to see the iPad on my computer screen, but have to touch the iPad itself to control it. So, looks like a kind of a mini version of the main menu. So it's basically the same on the iPad and iPhone. Um, the iPhone obviously has less screen real estate um, and less buttons on the main menu as well. So notice I just rotated this and it's going to get bigger. So let's go and we'll just dig in like that. So I'm going to just touch on the contacts tab, and from here it's going to go in there. And we can search whatever we want to. It's going to bring us to the list view. So I could search for anybody I want to. I click in that search field there at the top. I'm just going to type Sony as an example. And committing records is always a little interesting on the iPad. There's no tab character on the iPad keyboard. And in FileMaker, a lot of times to make something execute, you have to hit tab or commit. So the way I do that is I just kind of click around here somewhere, any kind of blank area, which will effectively do that. So now I'm going to just touch on one of these. Let's go to Mary Ann Morrison. And this is going to bring us into our full contact detail. So we can do all kinds of things here. We can create new addresses, create new contacts, and the method of doing that is actually a little bit different than it is in Studio Suite. Here, we're relying on the native tools. You'll know that in Studio Suite, we've got a row of buttons across the top to create new records, delete records, find records, and all that stuff. On the iOS, we do that with this little tool down the bottom right. So here we can add a new record, duplicate a record, delete a record, or delete found records. And I'm not going to exercise that right now because I'm sure you guys know how that works. But that's how you manage your records. And then if you need to scroll through them, use this little tool down the bottom. You can see at the bottom of the screen there, I'm touching the left arrow, and that is scrolling the records. And I can also drag that thing if I like to get through my found set. I guess let me talk about some other of these little tools within the iOS version of FileMaker. The bottom right is another icon that allows us to use to control records another way. Obviously, show all records, show omitted, omit, sort. So these two buttons in the bottom right are essentially replacing the buttons that we see across the top in the Pro version of Studio Suite. So in the upper left, we see uh, the layout, the current windows. So I've got two windows open right now, and I can scroll back and forth between them. And this is something you do kind of have to pay attention to on the iOS because you have the potential to open up several windows, and it's really good to kind of keep that down to a smaller set. Then the bottom left is going to be the layouts that we've got available, and we can view these as form, list, or table. And we happen to have all of them hidden, which is why we can't see any of them. But if we did have other layouts, we would see them listed there. So I'm going to hit done. And then in the upper right, you see the gear tool. And this is stuff that you probably won't go into. Um, these are all kind of managed within Studio Suite, so you typically wouldn't have to go into this area. But we can do the normal things. If I want to edit this, I'm going to say Sony Pictures is a film company. Um, so we could do it like that. So you probably didn't notice it, but I just touched right around here, and that's what committed the record. And just for exercise, let's go back into here, and I'm going to look for Bing Bing as the contact. And so now it says in my desktop version, Studio Suite is a film company. And then if I kind of make it so we can see both, go back here, execute that. Now sometimes there we go. So it refreshed right away on the iPad. Let me see if I can get into some other things. So let's go and look at maybe projects. So I'm just going to touch on projects. Brings us in there. So you can see that it's not, it's not screaming fast, but you can get what needs to get done. So that's why we're suggesting, probably don't want to, book large projects with this. So if I want to edit one of these, I could. I just click on it. That's going to bring up the edit screen. If I want to adjust the time here, I could do that from the menu here. Boom, boom. And then I'm going to hit save changes on that. So this is, just kind of using Studio Suite, except on the iPad. If we want to go look at our list of projects, we've got a similar kind of find mechanism here. So I would go down here and go enter find mode, and I would look for project name. I bet we've got 1,000 called test, so I'll do that. So here's what I'm going to again point out that I'm going to click right around here, and that's going to execute my test, my search. Um, and I think there it found that one project, which has nothing in it. I'm not sure if it actually did my find. Search and go. So now it's doing it. So that it went and found every project that has tests in it. So go back to detail. Let's go look at calendar. So there's my calendar right there. So we don't have the timeline view available in calendar, but we can go look at a week view. We can do presets. We can also go into particular day if we want to look at a particular day. So I talked earlier about the ability to have changes you make show up in Google Calendar. And so let's do that. I'm going to go look at my Safari. Oh, here's the read-only version of Studio Suite Calendar. So this is Safari, and I'm just looking at Studio Suite Calendar here. And if I go back to my main menu, this is going to give me my other choices. If I want to go into contacts, I could do the same thing. Joel. Hey, I've got two of me in there. So this is using the normal web-facing components of Studio Suite. This is read-only, but I'm accessing it on my iPad. And then let's go look at iCal, or calendar as they call it. So because we've got our server set up to talk two-way to Google Calendar, I've got my iCal here subscribed to that Google Calendar, and I can actually go in and make changes here, and this is going to get reflected both in Google Calendar and in Studio Suite. So I'm just going to go in and change a time. So change that to like 10, done, done. And in a minute or two, that's going to get reflected back in Studio Suite. So in some ways, you might want to consider using iCal on your iOS to edit changes in Studio Suite. It may actually be a little bit faster than doing it with um, Studio Suite. There's some gotchas with that, though, in that if there's conflicts or things aren't available, you're not going to see those kinds of messages because iCal doesn't have the ability to show you those kinds of things. I'm going to go in here and just make a little change to this. Return is almost over. Dot, dot, dot. And I'm going to click right here to make that go away, and that's going to show up in the desktop version. Let me see if I can. I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to see if I've got any questions. Okay, one of the questions is, does the web read-only version take up a user? And it does not. So the what we call the web glancer features in Studio Suite, because they're read-only, we're not going to eat a user on that. So those are free seats. Um, and the Google is also, well, it comes with the server, the network version of Studio Suite, but it does essentially open up the front end of the calendar to Google Calendar as a free client to be able to edit existing data. You can't add new events in the Google Calendar, but you can edit existing ones, which, if you've got editors that need to adjust end times or start times or things like that, they can do that within there. Another question, can you elaborate how to connect to Google iCal and iCal, please? I can't currently. That's not in the scope of this, and a little bit out of my league, actually. Byron, my main tech support guy, is the guy that can help you with that. And we're probably going to do a webinar at that at some point. But if you need to get that going sooner rather than later, give a call in and we'll walk you through it. Let's look at equipment. One thing that we want to do, in fact, there's a lot that we want to do here on the iOS. This is kind of our first, you know, hit out of the park with this thing. There's a lot more that we want to do with it. For example, on purchase orders, we want to be able to have your clients use their finger to sign acceptance for things. We're not quite there yet. We're also looking at some of the barcode functionality, so that you'd either be able to use the camera on your iOS device to scan a barcode and maybe check things out. There's also some third-party devices that have a better way to scan a barcode. It's actually got a little laser thing on it that will feed into the iOS device to be able to check things in and out a little bit better than having the camera take a picture of the barcode and analyze that and so forth. So we know there's lots of things that we can do with this, and we're getting there. Not all of them are there yet. Let's go look at tasks. So I can go into the list view of my tasks. I'm going to find all of my tasks. Hopefully I don't have any. Oh, I do. Darn it. Okay, so there's all my tasks. Look at quotes for a new studio, so I'll go look at that. Um, and then I'm going to go in and make any changes to this if I need to. So you can do a lot of stuff. The lightweight things like tasks and library um, are probably going to be a lot faster than the heavier things like projects and calendar. Those have to do a lot of processing in the background and over the network. Um, so if you're going into the vault and you need to go check things out, this might be a nice tool to do that with. Okay, here is another question. A timetable for the barcode iPhone functionality. I don't exactly. It's on our huge list of things that we're trying to get to, um, and I don't have a timetable for that, unfortunately. Let me think if there's anything else that I'm forgetting. Probably the hardest part is really just getting it connected the first time. So I'm just going to repeat. Go to the App Store, download FileMaker Go 12, go into that database. When it launches, it's going to ask you to locate your server, type in the IP of your server and name it, and then just find the SSX main file and log in. And there is a trick, and I'm embarrassed to say I forget what it is, to be able to save one of those files as a kind of a little mini application. I should know that answer, but I don't. So that it would show up as a normal application. We always just go right into FileMaker Go and do it that way. Um, let's see, I'm going to rotate for fun and go into contacts. So if I go to any old one of these, let's go to Slow Jones, we see more information. So I think that's the extent of our webinar today. Give us a call if you have any questions about it. And I'll show you a little bit about next week's webinar. It looks a little something like this. Our next webinar will be next Thursday at 1 o'clock PST, and we're going to be covering media assets within Studio Suite, specifically the Attach and FTP tab, the library module, and how that connects back to projects and contacts, and also the disk log feature within Studio Suite. So you'll get a follow-up email from this. If you have any feedback, let us know. And failing that, maybe we'll see you at next week's webinar. Thanks for tuning in.